Hello, my name is Paul Stewart and I'm in Hong Kong International Airport, and later this evening I'm flying back to Sydney with Cathay Pacific in their business class product. Now, I could have selected from two different aircraft for this trip. The first flight was an A330, while the second flight was a Boeing 777, so obviously I went with the second one because it looks better. So coming up is the 777 business class. Hong Kong is one of my favourite airports, in part because of the number of and diversity of the lounges. They're spread all over the airport, so if you know what gate you're using, it's an idea to find a map and then go to the nearest lounge. As I had a 6-hour layover, I visited a few of them, so I'll show you around them, although I've uploaded a separate 12-minute video where I'll walk you through all of the business and first class lounges, and I'll include a link to that below. There's a train that runs the length of the main terminal, although I really need to stress that it only operates in one direction, so if you, like I did, wanted to head back to the Qantas or the wing lounges, you'll need to walk back, although there are those travellators which makes it fairly painless. The bridge is the first lounge I visited, and it's split into two long sections with plenty of seating overlooking the airport apron. Down one end is a barista making coffee, and as I hadn't slept a lot the previous night as I was on a flight from Helsinki, I was keen for a coffee and a light snack. I then wandered up the other end of the lounge where there was a bar, where I had another cup of coffee, mostly, and enjoyed this view of a Cathay A340. There's also a large buffet, which is really impressive, and more seating and tables. I really can't understate how impressed I am with the Cathay lounges, and the fact that they're located all around the airport means that you really don't need to walk far for your aircraft. Next up was a very brief visit to the pier, which has similar amenities but with a very different style, although there's still the great view. I was keen to visit the Qantas Lounge, although it's located back near the entrance, so we went for a walk. This airport offers fantastic views for aviation nerds, including this Airbus A340-600, which was actually the longest airliner in the world until the latest stretched 747-8 was launched. The A340s are being phased out and replaced by more efficient big twins such as the Boeing 777, which you can see now. Unfortunately for Airbus, engine technology just wasn't quite there back when the A340 was under development, so they still needed 4, but only a few years later, General Electric, Rolls and Pratt & Whitney released new engines which allowed Boeing to design a larger airliner powered by only 2 of them. This 777 is the aircraft type flying me to Sydney this evening, and for interest's sake is painted in the new Cathay livery. Now here's the old livery, and you'll notice the darker green and red bits at the front, as well as the tail have been replaced by a simpler and cleaner design. I thought both looked fine, although I think the new one does seem more modern. Next up is the Qantas Lounge, which is open to all business class passengers travelling on any One World Alliance airline. As I said before, it's literally right after security. It's a much more open design than the other two lounges that I've shown you, so it can be noisier, although I personally don't mind the airport ambience. There's a bar and plenty of seating overlooking the terminal and a partial view of the airport apron. I had this braised beef brisket, egg noodle soup and another coffee, and ended up just relaxing here for a few hours and had a shower. Access to a clean shower, especially after 24 hours of flying, really has to be one of the biggest perks of business class, especially when you're flying through hot and sticky climates such as Hong Kong in September. And of course, there's a decent buffet available throughout the day. It was time for another coffee, followed by some attempts at being artistic, as my Instagram followers may have noticed, and then more relaxing before the flight. By the way, I'm also on Facebook, so please search Paul Stewart Aviation and join the growing aviation community. I also have many more similar aviation videos on my channel, so feel free to check them out and subscribe. Make sure you click the notification bell so that YouTube lets you know whenever I upload a new video. It was finally time to board, and as you have now learnt, my aircraft was painted in the old livery. While some of their 777s have a first class cabin, this one doesn't, and business class is divided into 2 cabins, with my seat, 21K, being in the second, smaller cabin. The seats are all in a 1-to-1 layout, which now is the industry norm, and obviously means that every seat has aisle access. For those travelling as a couple, the middle seats are fine, although just be aware that there's no privacy divider other than opening the door on the storage compartment, as you can see now. Unfortunately, my camera really struggled in the light, although I'll try and show you through what is otherwise a really good seat. To your side is an adjustable armrest, and below that is a storage spot for your shoes. In front of you is a TV screen, which I'll comment more on later, and below that is a huge foot recess. A lot of new business class seats have really narrow foot recesses, although this was massive and really helped, as I usually like to flex my knees a little when I sleep. There's another storage spot, and above that is a fold-out table which you can escape from during meal service if you need to. You've got this storage compartment with a noise cancelling headphones and Amenity Kit and water bottle all hidden inside. The inside of the door itself also has a mirror on it, which is useful, and I'll continue my tour on to the adjustable reading lamp, seat adjustment buttons, and several different power ports. And just above those, or next to them, is the remote for the in-flight entertainment if you don't want to use the touchscreen. Above you are reading lamps, although unfortunately there's no individual air vents, but at least there's an impressive view of the wing and engine. Now I just want to point out again how large the ledge is at your feet. My bag is pretty large, yet it was able to almost disappear underneath it. Here's the Amenity Kit, and it was perfectly fine, and I'll be giving this away to a subscriber with more details of that later in the video. A welcome drink was brought around, and this was called the Oriental Breeze, which was a sour plum tea, cranberry juice, and a few other things, and tasted great. Now I'll mention the in-flight entertainment quickly. The touch responsiveness was okay, and the image quality was perfectly fine. There was a good amount of English content, which was a relief as I had just flown with Finnair and their content was lacking. Unfortunately, there were around 5 minutes of ads before each movie, and yes, I did time it. Although you can fast forward them, unfortunately you often end up overshooting and end up having to rewind to the start of the movie, so it's a bit of a pest. Of course, there's the in-flight map, which I really enjoy looking at, and some external cameras, including this view of the forward landing gear, which I realised afterwards probably would have looked pretty cool during takeoff and landing. For comparison's sake, check out my video of Cathay's first class through to London, and I'll include a link to that in the video description below. Well, it was now time to depart, although sadly my view wasn't great, in part because the cabin lights weren't dimmed. I thought airlines are meant to dim the cabin lights during takeoff and landing, or maybe Cathay or Hong Kong have different rules. Anyway, comment below if you know the answer. At least the engine sounded good. After the initial climb, I reclined my seat and watched a few documentaries. There wasn't a round of drinks, and about 60 minutes after takeoff, dinner started, and I had this braised US pork cutledge with preserved mustard greens, kailan, carrots, and steamed jasmine rice, which all tasted fun. The drink was a Cathay signature called Cloud9, which is made up of vodka, Cointreau, Sprite, and some lemon. For dessert, I had this black forest trifle, which also tasted great, and then I sat back and watched some more movies. Now I knew the sunrise was coming up in a few hours, and I was keen to stay awake and get some footage. I checked out the in-flight Wi-Fi, although unfortunately it's not free even for business passengers, so I went back to watching movies. Somewhere above Indonesia, the first glimpses of light started reflecting off the lower part of the engine cowling, and then the light show began. In the distance now, you can see the Australian coastline, which I believe was the Northern Territory, and since I had got the sunrise footage that I wanted, I went to bed. I was woken by the flight deck asking the crew to prepare the cabin for landing, which was a surprise as I had requested that I be woken for the breakfast service. And this highlighted my only real criticism of what was actually a very good business class product, the service. While both my primary flight attendant and customer service manager did come and introduce themselves, it was rushed and seemed forced. My primary flight attendant did make eye contact, and when she came around later to get my meal orders, she pushed the iPad in front of my face as I leant across to pick up my menu. I had already decided what I wanted to order, but I just needed to look at the menu to remind myself of the name of the food. The lack of a round of drinks was odd, although I suppose I can understand if they just wanted to get the meal service done quickly as possible since it was a midnight departure, but then that wasn't particularly fast either. And later on, when I wanted to watch the moon's glow out of the window, as well as the Southeast Asian islands all lit up with lights, she came through and pushed the slide down. A simple request to lower the blind might have been more reasonable, I thought. And then to top it off, not waking me for breakfast, even though I'd specifically requested to be woken, was pretty disappointing. In fact, I even brought chocolates for the crew, but I was so disappointed with the service that I kept them for myself, and I'm literally eating some of them as I edit this video, so that's another down mark for Cathay, you're making me fat. So that's the negatives over, and frankly not getting breakfast is quite a significant one, but I'll move on with the positives. I really think that the seat itself is fantastic, it's really spacious, and while it doesn't have the doors of a few other business suites, it's still fairly private. There's quite a few storage spots and the legroom is really massive. While most airlines have moved away from the older 222 layout, the one advantage of the older style was heaps of legroom, and lots of the newer seats have narrow foot recesses, so when you're trying to sleep, you're locked in tight. You can't see it in my footage that well because it's pretty dark, but there really was a lot of legroom, and I was able to have a really good but short sleep. The in-flight entertainment was perfectly fine, as was the food and drinks minus there being no breakfast. The menus, which I'll show in full at the end of the video, have been changed to this new weird newspaper style which was unique. The airport experience itself was great with fantastic lounges, so really it's just a pity that the service wasn't as good as everything else. And finally, my Amenity Kit giveaway. It's open to anyone, so just make sure you comment below including the text Cathay Amenity Kit in brackets. Make sure you like the video and make sure that you're subscribed. After 1 month, I'll select a winner and mail out the kit. Now make sure you keep a close eye on my social media accounts for details of the winners, as a few previous giveaways have gone unclaimed. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and check out my channel for more similar videos. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my Instagram and Facebook pages. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where hopefully I'll get breakfast.